It is what it is, and it is not great. A loss to Leyton Orient on the pitch added to a growing unrest at the protracted takeover, which is now dragging on longer than a meeting that could have been an email. Welcome to episode 389 of the Tilehurst podcast. My name is Ben Thomas. I'm joined, as always, by Mr. Ross Webber. Ross, I'm not going to ask you how you are. I'm just going to go straight in with what I like to call elite content.
Okay.
So what I'm going to do is I've got 5 Reading strikers,
Great.
past and present. Well, they're all past, and you've got to blind rank them. Right.
All right, I can do this. Yeah.
So number 1 is top, number 5 is at the bottom.
Okay. Yeah. All right. I like this. Good idea. All right, let's go. Elite content.
I do have them sometimes.
Good job.
Right. So this is the first one for you. Leroy Lita.
2. That's tough. I love Leroy. I liked Ryan's video of him this week. Excellent Leroy footage. Lovely
brilliant.
Stuff. Anyway, Leroy 2.
Okay, so we've done Leroy. Yaku Mate.
3, 4.
4. Okay.
Yeah, I love Yaku as well. He's on the wall up here somewhere.
All right. Adam Lafondra.
3. It's a good one.
I think you might have nailed this actually.
Okay.
Yakubu.
Oh, 5. I mean, you've got 2 yaks and they both will score on this.
Yeah, and the final one.
Yeah.
Kevin Doyle,
number 1. Yeah, I actually, Lita and Doyle will be right on the line for me. But yeah, I think that's probably fair. And I'm quite happy where Alfie's gone as well. Although Mate, I did love Mate. Mate and his locker room dancing or that's some of my favorite Reading social media content ever.
Wow. Kevin Doyle, number 1. Leroy Lita, number 2. Adam Lafondra, number 3. Yaku Mate, number 4. And Yakubu, number 5. I think you pretty much nailed that, Ross.
I'm quite happy with that, yeah.
That's
I think
really
that's gone
good,
all right.
really
good job. We'll pull them out next time. We'll do Reading backup goalkeepers and we can see how we get.
Yeah, elite content that.
Right.
Thanks as always to ZC Said Films, our sponsors for this podcast and every other podcast we have ever done. We are going to get right into a pretty miserable recap right after this break.
Come rain or shine, it's time to relive the latest match action with the recap.
This podcast is sponsored by ZCZ Films, Reading's oldest ultras.
Okay, so welcome back to the podcast. Ross, realistically going into the weekend, I didn't think we'd end up losing this game.
No.
Under no circumstances did I think we'd end up losing the game. We did. I've heard a lot of people say it was 0-0, a 0-0 game. I don't think there's any such thing. I think you have to be in a situation where you've got to be going for something. And so the fact that it was 0-0 in inverted commas, the fact that game was decided by what was essentially a dreadful error by a young goalkeeper, and that's not an excuse, these are facts, has led the fan base to essentially erupt over the last few days. And we'll talk a little bit more later on about, the off the field stuff, as we always have to do on these pods these days.
Right. Love it.
Let's focus on the goalkeeper because we can't talk about the game without him.
Sure. Yeah. Let's start there.
I suppose the first question is, does he start against Bolton this coming Saturday?
Oh man, I almost think that's the last question. But because that's like the ultimate thing. Oh, that's tough, isn't it? Because, if you remove him from the lineup immediately, then that's not great for his confidence. But who's the alternative? It's maybe David Button, who was not chosen above CBC at the weekend. So I don't know what's going to be going on with his confidence either. It's not a great situation to be in for sure. Obviously, the goal that he conceded in the first half against Orient wasn't great from Boyce Clark, from what I'm looking at. And I think it gets mentioned in the mailbag, so maybe we'll take a look then. But his footwork is just a little off, and the ball sort of comes at him. It's like a daisy cutter that's slightly curving outside, but still, if you just look at his form and the setup, and we talked about this with David Button last year, something's just gone all wrong. I don't know if he's maybe got caught between two ideas of what he wants to do with the ball, but when he's setting his blocks, his hands, his chest, whatever it is that he's trying to put behind the ball, he's just got caught in two minds or something like that, and just failed to put down one comprehensive block, really, and it has squirmed under him. The real issue with this one, because he had a mistake against Cardiff in preseason, I think, but then further later in the game, he got time to sort of make up for it and get more confident and things like that. And with this game, Orient didn't do a whole lot outside of the goal that they scored, and so he didn't really have a chance to make up for it later on in the game. So yeah, it's really tough now. What do you do with the next game? If it wasn't Bolton on the road, I think I'd probably just say start him again, but I can totally understand arguments to maybe not give him such a high profile game.
It's very, very difficult because I'm still not completely convinced by Pereira. If I'm completely honest, the goalkeeping department in terms of the depth that we have is not good, really. We're dealing now with a player who has been injured for a long time, and before that was effectively frozen out, and I guess rightly so based on the performances. You go back to David Button and Northampton away. I mean, it was just ridiculous, really. And you could see that the frustration was creeping on the players. They were trying everything they could to get something out of the game. And he chucked in, 2 or 3 that day? And you can't, once that happens, it's very difficult to win the trust of everyone back. So I'm gobsmacked that he's still at the club personally.
It is definitely worth remembering that, actually, when we're talking about, goalkeepers making errors, that, one of the alternative to switch him to here, because as we understand, Pereira's out for 4 weeks, something like that. The alternative is a player that we saw mistakes with last year as well. Now, one thing I will say, Reading were poor in this game. They were, especially in the first half, that was one of the worst halves I've seen from Reading in a very, very long time. I don't know if it was complacency or what after a tricky start, and then facing, a team that had only scored 2 goals so far. Maybe they thought they didn't need to show up, but obviously they were proved wrong. But one thing you could see that wasn't really working is that Boyce Clark didn't look confident at all in build-up play in the first half, and that was leading to players being dragged out of position or players being forced to make passes in positions that weren't really ideal. A lot of these build-up, low build-up patterns that we see are practiced in pattern format, in training. So a lot of the time, yes, players are looking up and making decisions, but they're almost doing things on automation in some of those build-up plays. If they look up and the man's not where they expect him to be, that's a problem. And David Button, as big of an issue as he could be at times with his with his goalkeeping, he was good, and you can still see this in his statistics from last year. He was good with the ball at his feet. He's very good at baiting in a defender before he makes his move on the ball. So if that's the thing that the coaching staff see as the bigger issue of what happened, and it may well be, because outside of the goal, I don't think Boyce Clark did a whole lot wrong that Button doesn't also do wrong. But if the coaching staff decide that one of the main issues in the game was that Reading couldn't get any low build-up going, then I wouldn't be surprised to see Boyce Clark dropped for the next game.
It's a really good point, and they will be looking at it from a holistic point of view in terms of the whole picture, really, and actually looking at it and saying, well, did he do enough to start attacks, as you said, and kind of moving the ball, swiftly enough? I mean, I've seen a lot of nonsense this week from various people online, not just about Kanaya Boyce Clark, but just generally around the club. And there was this stuff about the club's mismanaged. He should have had a loan. None of that matters now, because he's a Reading player and he's made a mistake. Like, is he the number one choice? No, he knows that. Everyone in the club knows that. He's chucked one in, and it really was a bad mistake. But he doesn't need telling that. Goalkeeping for me is the worst position on the pitch. It is the loneliest position on the pitch going. You make a mistake, everyone sees that. You misplace a pass in midfield, no one's going to remember it, right?
Who's the lad? You liked? Sorry, Ben. Who's the lad that you liked last season in the academy? Was that Harvey Collins? Maybe.
Yeah, and I said at the time it was bonkers to let him go, because he played. I saw him play sort of 2 or 3 games at around about this time last year for the under-21s when they were regularly at the SCL, and he
Right.
was really, really solid. He was
Yeah.
really, really good, and I think he's ended up at Maidenhead. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Okay.
Someone I'm sure will chip in and go, no, he's not there, but I'm pretty sure he's at Maidenhead, and he was excellent. He had great distribution. He was good at shot stopping. He was a little raw around commanding his box, but he's under 21s, and
Right.
actually there was a lot of positives. And I just thought if you you can never have too many goalkeepers, in my opinion, because you'll always find a
Right.
place to play them, and if not, you get them alone somewhere else. Because we're now down to a situation where we've got our main one out. We've got two goalkeepers that have had first team experience now, both of which are really struggling in various ways to
Yeah.
be able to stake a claim. So it's really, really difficult. And you think back to when Alex McCarthy started, you think back to when Luke Southwood started, the fans were behind them massively. They were really in their corner. And I think it's a real shame and a real indication of where the club is at in terms of fan morale and self-esteem that, collectively, not everybody, but, a majority, they've turned on him straight away. And, this is a kind of game that you'd look at and go, yeah, do you know what? It would have been great to get a win, and we probably should got a win, but we didn't. It's not the end of the season. We're not going to get relegated or miss out on the playoffs
Right.
because of this game, But it's more about the confidence or the lack of confidence setting in for me. And people listen to this and they'll completely disagree or whatever, but at this stage of the season, we're still finding our feet, and that goes collectively, but also individual players. So,
Yeah.
you know, the other thing you could say, and we're going to talk about now, is that we didn't do enough in attack. What
Yeah.
what went wrong there on Saturday?
It's one of the first games of the season where I haven't mentioned it for a few weeks, but the average positions of our players were more recessed on the field than Orient's were, and that's in a home game against a team that again were in the relegation zone when we started. So there was just something really off. I think we spoke about it a few weeks ago, and but remembering Liverpool's first game of the season where they didn't play well at all in the first half against Ipswich, and then came out and got the win, which was great. But I think Slot said afterwards, if you don't win your duels, if you don't win, your physical battles, then doesn't matter about the tactics. You can't get started. You got to build the base of the cake before you can start icing it. And Reading didn't build.
That's good. That I'm
There
going
we
to
go.
write that down. You got to
Okay,
build
nice.
the base of the cake
Before you ice it. They call it frosting here. Weird. Anyway, not an ice cream cake, is it? Yeah. All right. So anyway, what was I talking about? You gotta they just didn't do their job basically, physically, in the sorry, that was good. In the first half. And it was just causing them issues. If you look at the stats for the first half versus the second half, they are pretty different. But one thing that's kind of telling throughout is trouble breaking down the opposition, once they got through the thirds. And that has kind of been an issue throughout. I think in this game in particular, we only really had two chances, and we should stop back on the Chem Campbell chance later on, because it would be good to speak out his debut. Other than that, we kind of had the Kelvin header at the back post, which he should have done better with, but there weren't really that many chances created for Reading otherwise. Wing with a good free kick that was created by a nice little run by Elliott. And really, looking back at all the goals we've scored so far this year, so we've scored 5 in the league, right? I went back and looked at them, and I think only one of them really is one that you can say was created in by breaking down the defense in their own third. So that's the Charlie Savage one that he scores against. Who was that? That was Wigan. Where the ball kind of comes back to him from a cutback and he slots home. I think every other goal is either a rebound off the goalkeeper or a pass forward. And a lot of them come through like transitions, fast plays where Reading are breaking out of their own half, or they're, breaking out of the middle third or whatever very quickly, and they're sending a pass through that completely wrong foots the defense. So Reading are quite good at like finding a hole and upping the tempo quickly to attack from their own half. But in terms of once they get into the other half, as of right now, I wouldn't say that the attacking play to break down the opposition is quite as fluid. I'm not 100% sure why that is at this particular moment. Obviously, there's been some chopping and changing with personnel in the sort of wide forward areas, and Nibs being out has changed some things as well. But yeah, definitely noticed that Reading are not really carrying a whole bunch of attacking threat. If they reach the attacking third and are then slowed down, their ability to recycle, find a new attack is, at least so far in results, and it's early in the season, it's a little limited.
Well, Campbell did come in for Adrian Akande, which was interesting. I suppose a bit of a gamble, obviously had a full 2 weeks, I guess, training with the squad and building up, understanding with the other forward players. If you're Akande, are you going to be a little bit pissed off that you didn't start that game?
Yeah, probably. But I think, you can be bad pissed off and good pissed off. And, it's almost, good pissed off. It's, like oftentimes, I don't know, you just want to light a fire under some players like that. He's had 2 games in the team. He's capped it off nicely with, like an assist in the most recent game against Charlton. But I still think that players at that age have to like earn their place in the team and also show some resilience if they are, taking out the team for a minute. Chem Campbell's a new signing, given the speed with which, it was basically announced that we could actually sign maybe a player, and then we brought Chem Campbell in. I'd guess that he has been at least known in the thoughts, or like he's maybe known that he's going to Reading a little bit earlier. So Sellers has probably had something in mind for him for a while, and so I wasn't too surprised to see him start there. But I do see what you're saying with Akande. But, I want these players to keep their feet on the ground. Like obviously Garcia's gotten a lot of time in the first few weeks of the season, and that started to slow down as well. So I think these players do understand, where they are at in their development. And, part of why the club has put so many youth players in positions to succeed over the last year or two is because we haven't had an alternative. But, if we have been able to bring in a signing, we presented him to the fans the week before, I think Akande could probably understand why Campbell started.
Yeah, it would have been a bit odd, I guess, if he hadn't started after that. Look, no disrespect to Chem Campbell, but I don't know. Like you said, it was like Conor Gallagher at the
He scored now, Conor Gallagher, too.
Well, yeah, but do you know what I mean? Like, you see all these clubs in Spain and they bring them out and there's like 80,000 people watching do keepy uppies.
I'd love that.
It was a little bit weird, I thought.
Let's do that, actually. Are you saying that we should have done more for Chem Campbell, is what you're saying? It wasn't enough, what we should have done. 80,000 Reading fans went to Madrid to celebrate Chem Campbell being here.
That's the town, isn't it? That's everyone.
That's the place to go.
Getting over there.
Exactly.
I just thought it was a bit odd, and I think you're right. I think it would have been even stranger if given that welcome. And it's a spot on point you made about him, Sellers, and the fact that we know how he thinks in terms of the depth of the thought process that he goes through with these players. There's no way he would have gone out. We just sign him and see what happens. Like it would have been a long term thing to go right. Well, if we lose this player, we'll get him in and. He's obviously going to be a direct replacement for Aziz. I don't think he did too bad. I think he had obviously what you class as one dangerous attack, which probably should have resulted in a goal, really.
Yep.
But I saw again. It's just the way that it is. I remember someone called him lazy and unfit, and I was like, he's definitely neither of those things.
Gosh, no.
He's definitely neither of those things, is he? Let's be realistic here. And
the main thing
for a debut, I thought he was okay. I thought what you said in the ratings, was spot on, Ross. To be honest.
Yeah, he got up and down the pitch. Within 5 minutes, I think I wrote in the ratings, he had a Nibs-esque sort of challenge, either in the opposition's third or the middle third, so to win the ball back in a decent area.
Would you class it as a nibble?
A nibble. He had a nibble. He had a chemble on the. That wasn't nice. But he had that ball thief sort of thing that we talked about with Ruben, where he arrives, from the blind side and just pinches the ball away, while the opposition player doesn't necessarily have a chance to react because he doesn't see him coming. Hence blindside. I thought that Chem was clearly a forward who could play in a pressing system. That was one of the few things that I did think. Reading had an okay first 10 minutes, and then they just completely went inside themselves. for the rest of the half on Saturday, and Chem Campbell was part of the reasonably good 10 minutes. And I actually thought pretty much all of what Reading did from an attacking sense that was pretty good. He was involved in some way. Obviously, he got the big chance, and he should have scored. But he only should have scored because, he took the pass from Kelvin, which is a pretty good pass. This is a 7 out of 10er for me. It's not perfect. It's not right into his way, so he can just take his shot first time. But, it's put Chem 1v1 again, in the box, that's a good pass. But Chem still then cut inside his man really nicely. It's almost the exact same cut that he used to get a penalty off Mola last time he was at the Select Car leasing. And I think he's just made it too telegraphed, that he's going for that far corner, and he tries to slide it under the goalkeeper. The goalkeeper's guessed right, basically. Guy, just when you pull the finesse marker on FIFA to make him do the shot into the far corner, it's too obvious. It's obvious. So yeah, goalie guessed right. And it wasn't to be. But overall, no, I thought this was a perfectly fine debut from Chem Campbell. I did think that he offered a little more in the pressing game than what Akunde has done so far. In my opinion, I'm not 100% sold on that. It's been one game. But yeah, no, I expect to see him start again versus Bolton.
Yeah, well, I think, we can pretty much sum up this as a very off day across the board. It was very flat from the off. There was, there wasn't the urgency, or there wasn't the cohesion that we've seen previously from this team. And I think he caught everyone by surprise. The crowd were pretty much flat when that goal went in, and it was difficult. It was a difficult day, really. And I think it just adds to the overall kind of, growing frustration that we all have as a fan base and as a club at the moment. So, yeah, onto Bolton. I say week off, that's not true, but week on the training ground, and then off to Bolton, who are a crisis club really at the moment. Got absolutely hammered against Huddersfield, and it'd be very surprising if Ian Evatt is still in the dugout come Saturday, if he hasn't already been sacked by the time this pod reaches your ears. I don't know, but not looking good for Bolton at all, which is a real shame, really. Good club, Bolton, and I've always liked him as a manager. So we'll see what we end up with on Saturday, but it's another away game that's tricky. We all know they're going to be tricky in this league, and I think the frustration really is that it's points dropped at home, which we just can't afford. We need to get to 50 as quickly as possible, and those home games are going to help us do that. So hopefully we can bounce back. If not this Saturday, then the following Saturday, early kickoff against Huddersfield Town, which we'll be previewing next week after our review of the Bolton game, if that makes sense. Let's move to the mailbag. We haven't got a huge amount in there, really, is kind of always standard for a loss, and the kind of the mood there is. There's a few little bits in there, really. It's almost like a thought bag this week.
A thought
bag.
I
did think, Ross, over the weekend we should call it something different, like Listener's Corner.
Oh, okay. All right.
But I think we just stick with the mailbag, to be honest.
See what the people in the mailbag think next week, and we'll work it out.
What should we call this?
Yeah.
No
Carrier pigeon corner. Anyway, moving on.
Yeah, all that sort of stuff. Yeah. But yeah, we're gonna move to that now. So get yourself a drink, biscuit, whatever you want, and we'll be back in a little while.
Be loud and be proud and back the boys and make some noise. Come on, you R's!
Shout out to this week's podcast sponsor, ZCZ Films, showing that age is no barrier to being a hula hoop.
Alrighty, welcome back to episode 389 of the Tilehurst podcast with myself, Ben Thomas, and of course Ross Webber across the pond. He's wearing a Valencia shirt tonight, which is very topical.
Ruben.
Very topical for Ruben, yeah. And I'm sure this will probably be the last pod that we can plug this on. But if you don't know, we interviewed our manager a couple of weeks ago, and it's the only pod that we've done that I've listened to fully, because I just wanted to hear from him again. And he was just
that you were on. Okay, I thought you listened to me and Ryan a few weeks ago.
No, I listened to that one because I wasn't on that.
Upset.
I've not really listened to myself. Am I a bit weird?
Yeah, I mean, there's Ryan and then there's Ruben. Who do you want to listen to more?
Well, do you know what? I mean, the stuff that Ryan's been churning out recently has been quite phenomenal. If you've not checked out the pod, okay, fine. But if you haven't seen the video that Ryan put up, the Barclays man-esque vibe video
Yeah.
that he put
Yeah.
together off his own back with little to no brief at all. Stunning piece of work. So
Very good stuff. Yeah.
yeah.
And that trend sort of went away before I had time to
I
get
know
tired
it
of
did. It
it.
just
So that was
disappeared,
good.
didn't it? You know, this
Just
time last
disappeared
week,
over the weekend. Yeah, everyone had
everyone
stuff
was
to do.
involved.
Was it nice in England over the weekend?
Well, I think it was more to the fact that the international break ended and people
Oh,
were
yeah.
get
That's a
back to
good
whinging
point.
about our clubs now, which is what
Yeah,
we've
you're
just been
right.
doing for the last 18 minutes or so. So,
All right. Yeah.
yeah, let's talk about social media a minute, because the social media team at Reading has been the fact it's been absolutely decimated over the last, I don't know, probably 2 years, I guess, really, if you're going back through sort of former employees.
Sure.
And they are, in my opinion, sort of trying to do what they currently can. You know, they are a very, very small team with a lot of work on. And I'm not out here being a club apologist. That's not what I'm doing here. But I do feel pretty reluctant to look at anything the club are putting out on social media because of the abuse they're getting. Basically, you know, they put out something today about the stadium tours, which I've never done, which I may well do in the future. 25 years of the stadium being open and having these tours, and the comments on X were just they were just outrageous, absolutely outrageous. And I
Yeah.
think, you know, that there are things that the social media team can do, but we all know, you know, when you are busy at work, nothing else matters apart from clearing the next thing off your list and the next thing and the next thing. I mean, in terms of the social media stuff, in the grand scheme of things at the moment, Ross, does it matter?
I think you've kind of given clues throughout this podcast as to what's actually going on, haven't you? And that, you know, we all thought that we would have the takeover done at this stage, including seemingly the man who was in position or pole position to take over, you know, Mr. Coag. We all thought that this was going to be done by now. So I think that you're right that any content that the social media team put out there right now is going to come with a wave of, oh, what's going on with the takeover then, you know, every single time. And it's just the communication thing again, isn't it? Like, these people are in a tough position because they probably, I mean, like, the social media guy cannot make any decisions as to what he can communicate, you know, in terms of the takeover. Let's make that very
They'll
clear
be the last
right
people
now.
to know. They will be handed a statement and go, put that out, please. They'll literally be the last people to know.
Right, especially with it being as important as it is, and like with those are the people that actually have the access who could get that communication out there in the world that they need to get right. So like, they are the last people that will be seeing it, like you say, because they don't want this accidentally getting out, you know, or anything like that before you know, anything is officially done. I think that, you know, football social media is in a weird little spot, you know, like, as we've had to reduce the size of our team because of, you know, the funding at the club and things like that. Football social media just continues to go through, you know, creative changes and is being used more and more. And, you know, we see all these other clubs having fun with their social channels, doing you know, all kinds of fun announcement videos for transfers when we don't have any of those anyway, and, you know, just like lighthearted atmosphere. But like, is anyone going to be wanting to see that sort of lighthearted atmosphere at the moment? Maybe a little bit more content around you know, what's going on in the training ground and stuff like that could be done. There are a few things that I think could be done, but a lot of these like clubs have huge marketing firms and things like that that are taking care of all of this. And from what we understand, Reading do not currently have many people in that setup at all. So yeah, it's a tough play. It's a tough position to be in, talking to a lot of people who don't want to hear anything other than takeover's been done right now. How they, including us, or including me, certainly, to be honest. Like, I'm not that. I don't need to hear much about. I mean, like, I get it. Like, I want to see that the club is, you know, trying to cover all of its bases communications wise, obviously, but it ain't going to happen until the takeover is done. So everything goes back to that as per usual. I'm so sick of talking about this blinking business deal on this show.
It's ridiculous. And I'm sure, you know, working inside the club is even worse because it's your livelihood, as we've
said.
said.
Right.
Yeah. I get the frustration when there's kind of basic errors in when tickets are released or who were playing or what, like, that is just basic. It doesn't annoy me because, you know, honestly, I couldn't, in the grand scheme of things, I couldn't really care less, to be honest. it's a mistake, we move on. But if the club had been taken over and those mistakes had been made, I think it was the Exeter game that said it was a league game, and then the tickets went on sale. They said that the tickets went on sale the same day as the game, or something along those lines. Anyway, if we've been taken over, but oh, this is ridiculous or whatever. But it's more the anger that I have an issue with in terms of directing out people that are trying their best, and that I've had jobs where it's just been me doing a bunch of stuff. It's incredibly difficult to get through that workload, incredibly difficult. And because it's such a faceless thing, I think people feel like they can just have a pop and just go, oh, well, use all this kind of language and stuff. Like if it was like, someone like us posted where we're visible and all the rest of it, I don't think it would be as vitriolic as it has been. But because it's kind of seen as this is the face of the club and this is the contact we have, so we're going to use it in a negative way, it becomes a little bit, it just becomes, at times it's become quite uncomfortable, I think, from my personal point of view, watching that and seeing that. So, again, we are where we are, and that kind of links into where the fans' mood is, because you can sense the frustration. People are starting to talk about tennis balls again, and getting games abandoned and all the rest of it. And I am surprised, as anyone listening to this will be, that we are not out of Dyer's clutches. I'm gobsmacked that this hasn't happened yet. I really, really am. But I don't know quite what the hold-up is, and quite frankly, I don't know who does know what the hold-up is. And I think that's the problem, because if there was something to communicate, I'd like to trust the club, and this might be naive, I don't know, that legally they can turn around and go, this is where we're at and this is what's happening. Are you sharing that frustration at the moment, Ross, or are you kind of like, do you know what, the team is playing reasonably well bar Saturday, like we've got a good manager, the players are okay, we might do well this season on the pitch? Are you like freaking out at this stage? Are you getting a little bit nervous? Are you kind of thinking, well, what's the vibe basically?
Yeah, I mean, like, I feel like I've been through so many waves of, I'm getting a bit nervous, to I actually feel all right about this now. To this point, I think I'm just sort of numb somewhere in the middle with a lot of that stuff. I think what I will say, though, like, kind of going back to your first point there, is that I don't love the frustration and the anger being shown between members of the fan base either. Like, I think we all need to be a bit kinder to each other in that regard. And social media, so people are going to do what they're going to do. But I do think that, like, this is a point where we have to start coming together as a fan base again. And the first step to that is to get rid of that sort of, like, angry language towards each other and stuff like that. So yeah, I guess I just don't have too much of a stance anymore. I just hope it gets done ASAP. I think that people need to make sure that they understand that there's no point getting frustrated at people who aren't allowed to communicate stuff to us. And that for me includes, the actual members of the social media team that are doing the actual posting itself, and seeing the comments that come back at them, on a daily basis. But yeah, I guess we're just waiting for that corner flag image. And until then, this may well continue.
I mean, I posted, I knocked up a question, just trying to find it. To do with the pod, because we were getting nothing back on the mailbag in general. So I thought, I'll just ask how people are. I just said, like, how are you currently feeling? Optimistic, worried, bemused, worn out. Aside from the obvious, how else can the club boost attendances? I'll read some out. Alan of the Shire, definitely not optimistic. Worried, yes. I think takeover fatigue is setting for most fans as protests and chants and SBWD. Is that right? So, yeah, SBWD pressure appear to have changed nothing despite the absolute heroics by those involved. I think we're probably helpless to affect the outcome. I agree with that last sentiment personally. I think whatever happens moving forward, it's really in the hands of one man who shall not be named. So, yeah, I think that's kind of where I'm at with it. Matt Catton, all of the above, really, Ben. The longer things drag on, the more it feels like a deal will collapse. And God knows what will happen. Honestly, the club just needs to be taken over and run properly with a plan. If that happens, hopefully the crowds will return. Tom G. Harrow Smith. Sorry, Tom.
More Toms. All right, good. Welcome, new Tom.
On the pitch, okay if it stays like this, but can't help but feel how fragile it is. It's reliant on sellers staying and takeover getting done so we don't lose players in January.
Yeah.
I've not been this pessimistic about the takeover for a long time. Again, can't argue with that. Really can't. RFC Martyr, which I think is Peter Martyr, but rebranded. If rebranded, branded.
He got
If it is you,
rebranded to
Peter,
RFC Martyr. All right,
rebranded, yeah.
cool.
Oh,
Sick.
dearie me. On pitch, I'm feeling optimistic. We generally play exciting football, and I'll be happy if we make progress up the table this season. Off the pitch, extremely worried. It's clear that Dye has no intention of selling the club. It feels like he's determined to kill our club regardless. Bertie Blue, 1871. Where did you expect attendances to be, considering we're in League One with no light at the end of the tunnel? All right, mate. I'm just asking a question. Chill out. Goodness me, I didn't expect
no,
it
but
to
that's
be
kind of
anyway.
what we were saying, I guess, a little bit. Like, you know, like what can we expect until we get the corner? Like, I want people to be nicer to each other, but what do we expect until we get a corner?
I'm sure they didn't mean it. I'm sure.
You know, like yeah. No, f them. No, actually, sorry, that was rude.
Yeah, exactly. We've always been a
Sorry.
club whose attendances rise with success. I think we've been doing well to get what we've been getting, considering the complete lack of hope. I mean, that is a good point. What was it, 12,000 on Saturday? Like, it's pretty good.
Something like,
given
it's not bad considering it looks all right on TV. Like it looks fine. You know, like it looks better than some of the bowls around the country do. So hey, what can you do?
Nick, second best attendance in League One this weekend. There you go. So it was all right, actually.
There you go. Yeah.
Just under 13,000 and all others. Over 10k feels it's just not our problem concern. Again, probably a valid point. Clearly fatigued by takeover, get it done, few free agents to both squad and get a decent run going. Yeah, I mean, again, do you know what? I think people are just, so worn down by talking about it. And I think if you're a Reading fan, listen to this and you'll work with someone who is kind of a football fan, but probably supports Chelsea, and I'm not digging at Chelsea fans because there's some Chelsea fans out there that know their stuff, right? But you'll go into the office and be like,
around me.
Is that takeover done yet? And you'll be absolutely sick of talking about it. And I feel that. I do feel that. I get that because it is boring to go, no.
Like, you know what I'm getting now from all those kinds of fans? I'm getting, I thought that was done by now. It was like, so did we. Like, well, that's where we were too. It's like, they were like, weren't you talking to us about a training ground or something in March? And I was like, well, that guy's trying to buy the whole darn club now.
But do you know what I mean? Those people that are like, oh, I like football. Who do you support? Chelsea. Good.
Yeah.
Okay. And again, it's something. Well, actually, I don't like Chelsea at all. I can't stand them. But used to like Chelsea a lot. I thought they were a great club. When they had all the Italians and everything else. But now they're just a husk, aren't they?
Not a fan.
Husk of a football team.
I did enjoy Noni Madueke telling Wolverhampton fans that their town was, a shithole, and then dropping a hat trick on them. That was pretty funny. Yeah, I mean, I'm into Madueke. I like Madueke and Palmer, so I'll give him that on.
They're just
on
like Chelsea. I don't know what I'm talking about. I just gave it an example, but do you know the people I mean though? That are sort of like, I love football. Yeah, and like I can't go out because I'm watching it on TV and all this sort of stuff. Like it's not.
I'll put it this way, Ben. I know a Chelsea fan who said to me, I had to stop watching Chelsea. Now I'm watching Real Madrid. So, yeah, I get the idea of where you're coming from, for sure.
The case is closed. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Georgie Dawes is back. Haven't heard from you for a little while, sir, but thanks for chipping back in.
What's up,
Completely
Georgie?
bored and worn out with it, to be honest. The goalie situation is a prime example of why the club needed to be sold before the transfer deadline. Our backup players are simply not good enough and will cost us points. Again, fair point.
That's a good point, actually. Like that's that's a consequence of many years of like the pot, kind of getting smaller with the goalkeepers and Boyce Clark. I mean, like it'd been so long that Boyce Clark had been hanging around the club now, and starting games with Jamaica U21 or whatever that. Eventually we had to actually start him in a league game and see if he could do it. And maybe some of the stuff with the goalkeepers is related to, which goalkeepers were let go, which were sent on loan and which were kept. But in either case, we're talking about, what's the name again of the one that we had last season who's gone to Maidenhead now?
Harvey Collins,
Jokkel Anderson, who's on loan in the second division in Iceland, and Kanaya Boyce Clark. And then beyond that, who have we got? Where's the next person coming from? I mean, that's definitely like a result of not being able to effectively recruit in what is a very competitive market for goalkeepers.
Final one, Matt Williams. Always very sensible, Matt Williams. He knocks a lot of good stuff up. Not normally quite long threads. He did one this weekend around, I think, EFL media coverage, which was really good. Just kind of the way that it's presented and all that kind of stuff. It was quite interesting. It's well worth a read if you can see that on X. More worried than I expected to be now about the future of the club. Short term, not overly worried about things on the pitch and still expect to be mid-table. Would need to get better at beating teams who come to spoil games to be top six, but dominate enough games
100%.
to avoid bottom six. And I think
agreed.
Mid-table.
Sorry, was that was Matt Williamson?
Yeah.
I agree
not
with
Williamson,
that completely.
Matt Williams.
Williams, my apologies, Matt. I agree with that completely. Like we're kind of alluding to, and I'll look into it more. But yeah, the club, if they are, if they're going to fulfill my outrageous prediction for the season, that had nothing to do with Michael Craig, then they are going to need to learn how to break down, a settled block in its own third, basically.
Yeah. He goes on to say, our attendance is soft answer, but I don't think much can be done right now. We simply need the club's future sorted before we can do anything. It's starting to become obvious how stripped back everything is. E.g., no mascots or halftime kids shootout will be results based for now. Yeah, I mean it is. It is really stripped back. There's no other way to describe it. Everything that way. So yeah, it really just everything just needs to move on from now. It really does, and hopefully it can do in due course. We were we were treated, can I even say that, to an article by The Athletic over the last 24 hours. Ross, I'm not going to read it all because I can't be bothered, and I wasn't hugely keen on it. I just thought it was stoking a fire that didn't need to be stoked, basically. What did you make of it? Did it tell us anything new? Is it panic stations because of that article?
Looking at it from a sort of like marketing and editorial perspective, which I'm not sure is the perspective you were looking for here, but they have made it a story in 2024 that, since the January, game abandonment. And so The Athletic has been following it kind of off and on. It was actually checking in every now and again. I remember the first protest about a year before that. They were around when that was going on too. But this year in particular, I think they have made it a story at times, and they were certainly around and breaking stories when the training ground stuff was going on. So it does appear to me that, the Athletic's reasoning for putting out the article today is, yeah, sure, partly maybe they thought they had some more information to cover, but also this is a story for them that's garnering clicks this year. And so they probably wanted to go back to that. Well, I would personally think that's some of the reason this article got put together, because as a lot of fans thought, there's not a whole lot to it. There is suggestion of a delay. We're all aware of the delay. I wonder if this is almost for fans of clubs that aren't Reading, so who might be checking into this story. And the last time they heard about it, Reading fans were relatively confident they'd start the season okay and thought probably we'll have this done by the time the transfer window is through, or by the time the international break is done, or by, Tuesday, September 17th. So I kind of think that they are covering it from the perspective of somebody who might not know what's going on, and some of this delay that they're talking about has already happened. But they do talk about deadlines not being hit. And so, yeah, it's frustrating, and it's not surprising that, regardless of how you read it, it will stoke some fire in the fan base for sure.
I just, I've long since given up on talking about protests and stuff like that, because obviously, the only time I did that, it did not end well all those years ago. But what I would say, and I think So Before We Die hit the nail on the head when they just said, look, just look for facts, just kind of hang fire. That we know that there is always that option to disrupt games. We know there's always option to use the tennis balls. marches, all that kind of stuff. But I think it was Alan in the mailbag that said it earlier. My honest opinion is that we're powerless to do anything as fans. We really
Yeah.
are. And I know that that's not going to be great listening to some people or for some people, but I just don't see, as hard as those guys have worked, as hard as the fan base has worked, what else can happen. And that's not me going, well, I'll just give up and wait for admin. For what it's worth, I think admin will be currently looks like the best option for us at this stage, because it means that there's a way forward and we move to eventually to where we want to be. But the most sensible thing, the logical thing, is to be taken over by someone like Rob Coig, who can start to clean house a little bit, who can start to lay some foundations and clean everything up in the way that he wants. But there is obviously a significant reason as to why we are now approaching the middle of September, late September, and we're still not taken over. So
I want to just imagine it's darkest before the dawn, and
yeah.
it's all getting a little bit murky now,
it
as
really
the
is
last
murky.
T's and I's are dotted and crossed and, I don't know, given to Kingsley or whatever. But hopefully this is just the frustrating final little bit. It's like waiting for Christmas morning, and that last little bit from 6:45 to 7 until you can go get your presents. That's the worst. So,
you had to wait till 7 to get your presents?
Well, 9 now that I'm an adult. It's rubbish. What am I even doing in this?
Why did you have to
house?
wait till 9 to get your presents?
Well, people want to wake up, they want to have a cup of coffee, all these kinds of things. You've got young children still that are going to be waking you up, so you haven't seen the light of 9 a.m. in a long time.
That is true. Yeah, that is true. Well, listen, I mean, good luck to you. I'll remember that when we're getting close to Christmas.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. That's fair. All right. Well, let's move on from this darn takeover. I'm so tired of talking about it.
Should we just go to Bolton? Should we just talk about Bolton?
Let's go to Bolton. That sounds much better than being in Reading.
Let's do it. Yeah. All right. Join us in a bit.
There's another huge game ahead for the Royals, so be loud and be proud for the big match preview.
Breaking news as you join us on the pod. Ross has confirmed that Ian Evatt will be in the dugout against us on Saturday. Any update on this breaking news story, Ross?
It looks like Bolton are certainly aware that something needs to change in their operations. I think that it looks like 2 roles. So this is from the 72 and from the Bolton News. It looks like the Ian Evatt is at least keeping his role for this particular game against Reading, but 2 of the coaching staff have been dismissed as a result of the thrashing by Huddersfield at the weekend. So, we predicted Bolton, or I certainly predicted Bolton to finish in the automatic spots this season. And my other pick was Birmingham, so that's coming out all right. But Bolton have had a horrid start to the year.
Yeah, well, I was looking through earlier. I mean, I've got them up here. It's a weird start for them. Really, I mean, they beat Leyton Orient away start of the season. They got through on penalties against Mansfield in the EFL Cup. They drew 0-0 against Wrexham, which I kind of caught a little bit of that. Really, they were really pushing Wrexham in that game.
That's what it looked like.
Probably should have got 3 points. Lost to Charlton away. Beat Shrewsbury in the cup in the next round, and then it gets a bit odd because they played Bolton at home on the 31st of August, same day that we had Charlton at home.
Wait, they played 2-0. Oh, they played who at home? They didn't play Bolton at home.
Sorry,
they played Bolton Charlton at home. Yeah. They played Charlton when we played. That's confusing.
So they played Charlton the week before we played them, but on the same day that we played Charlton at home, they played Exeter at home. Everyone catching up with this still? Yeah. And they lost 2-0. Basically, they lost 2-0 to Exeter. They were playing them at home. They lost 2-0. Big shock result. Coupon buster. And then they kind of toiled against Barrow in the, whatever it's called, Football League Trophy, Bristol Street Motors, whatever.
Car Cup.
Yeah, Car Cup. Nice. And then they had an absolute mare. They've had 3 league... No, they haven't. Yeah, they were... By the time they played us against Saturday, they would have had 3 league games in a row at home. That's not right, is it?
I did notice, I think we had 2, and it felt a bit odd to me as well. But yeah, hey, I mean, tough sheet. This is what's happening at the Tough Sheet Stadium.
And then they got absolutely tonked against
Yeah.
Huddersfield at the weekend. I mean, one of the goals they conceded was comical. It was absolutely farcical.
Yeah.
They were playing around with it on the 6-yard area, and it was just dreadful, absolutely dreadful. So, God knows what we're going to get on Saturday. Ross, talk us through who you think should start for us in light of the game against Leyton Orient this past weekend.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think the lineup is going to see wholesale change. I think that the only two questions for me, really, I think the front line stays the same. I think that the back four stays the same. And the questions for me are around the midfield and the goalkeeper. I think we've already spoken about the goalkeeper. I think that I would probably keep Boyce Clark in, but I wouldn't die on that hill, I suppose. The other thing is Nibs. Nibs obviously was able to get back into the squad for the game at the weekend, and he played okay when he came on. He was definitely his energetic self in terms of a lot of off the ball running, but he was a little rusty once he did get on the ball. And the question there is he going to start in that same kind of role, that we saw at the start of the season that left Savage out of the lineup? Or is he going to be moved somewhere else? I think the only other players who would maybe be in danger of losing their place to Nibs would be maybe Kelvin or Chem Campbell, but that would also involve some sort of shift in formation or something like that, which I don't necessarily know if Ruben's going to want to do. I did think that the way in which Reading were attacking and their system shifted a little bit towards the back half of the first half and the game against Leyton Orient, because they had to change something. But I still don't necessarily think literally the only other things I could think you would maybe do would be to maybe move to a diamond midfield, right? And you put Nibs at the top of that as a 10, and then you play two strikers, and whether that be Kelvin with Smith or, Chem Campbell with Smith, sure. Then you could keep Savage in the team. But I think that the way that Sellers is going to think is that Savage didn't quite do enough to keep his position against Orient. So I wouldn't be surprised if he gets dropped again. Just because I think Elliott, Wing, these are players that are crucial to how Reading build up. Wing is, one of the primary drivers of the first pass in build up. And then, Elliott, as Sellers talked about, is the guy that they look to get loose in space, in the red zone, as he called it. So, yeah, I think my sense would be the goalkeeper will stay the same, and the midfield will shift slightly to bring Nibs back in, which is harsh on Savage. But I think that Nibs is just one of the most important players in this Reading team. So as soon as he's back, he's going to be back.
Yeah, look, I mean, it would be great to get a result. Anything out of the game would be fantastic. It's really, really difficult to call because I was concerned after I saw the Bolton result that they would just go, right, we'll clean house, we'll get someone interim, and that you'd get that new manager bounce, which there'll be statistics out there, but I just feel like it always happens to us. We always catch teams when they're on the up rather than when they're on the down in terms of that new manager bounce. But
got lucky with Birmingham this season, though. I think they've won
we
every game now
really well.
since we played them. Yeah,
and they look all right
definitely
now. I mean, they were ridiculous last night.
Right, yeah.
So
it's almost like spending more money than the rest of the division will net you some good players. I've heard, but I know nothing about that. I have no experience. Reading haven't signed a player for money. What are we going to do when Reading actually sign a player for money on this podcast? We should throw a whole party.
Go down the turtle, probably.
Yeah, down the turtle.
Yeah, I mean, it beggars belief, really, doesn't it? That you'd think that spending money on players would get you somewhere. I don't know. I wouldn't know. As Ross said, we don't know anything about that. But I am quite pleased that Ian Everett's in there because I think they will still be reeling from what was losing 4-0 at home is specific. That's a really specific result, and that is a sign of a team that is not coping well with life at all for whatever reason. Maybe it's the pressure that's getting to them. I don't know. I'm
I would
really,
think
really
that's
not
got
sure.
to be involved, right, with some of the pressure on the team, and maybe some sort of playoff hangover. It's such a cliched phrase, but just in terms of what that maybe does to the fan base attitude and the speed with which they'll get on your back if you make a mistake in games and things like that. And these things do matter to the players. They definitely do feel the impact from the crowd. So, especially if it was once good and it's souring, which is what I understand kind of is the case with this, Ian Evatt coach team. So, yeah, I'm sure. Because I'm thinking about it. Like, did we ever really? Okay, we went through a period where we go on a bunch of away days and we would collapse and lose 3 or 4-0. But I don't think
Well,
that really tended to happen at home.
we got smashed up there last year. I mean, they were great. They were
Yeah,
probably
they
one of the
were.
best teams I've seen at that point. And I was like, well, they're definitely going to get playoffs.
They made a finisher out of John Daddy Bob Varson, man. I mean, like, hey, there's nothing they can't do, apparently.
Yeah, and this is it. This is it exactly. They were bouncing that day. The fans were great. Really good atmosphere in the ground for the home fans, certainly. So, yeah, I couldn't tell you what's gone on there, but all I know is that we're not desperate for a result at all, but some sort of reaction would be good. I guess it depends really on what happens this week in terms of news or whatever with the takeover and how that moves forward. If it does move forward at all, I don't know. But you can see, well, my opinion is that it was kind of affecting the players on Saturday, so hopefully they can kind of brush that aside and kind of move on with the game. But look, we've got this game coming up. We've got Huddersfield at home. We've got some tough games coming up over the next couple of weeks. So yeah, it'd be great to get a result up there.
If Reading start well, if they actually have a good start, like they have done, more often than not this season, and they go right at Bolton, maybe that crowd pressure will tell, and maybe they will be able to really cause Bolton a tough time, and yeah, it could be an okay result up there, despite the fear factor of it being opposition that made the playoff final last year.
Do you mean a tough sheet time?
It'll be a tough sheet time. Exactly. Got to use that as much as possible, haven't we? It's our one chance this season.
Yeah, it's our one sheet chance to. No,
Our one sheet, yeah.
Absolutely
right.
stupid.
Anyway, good.
Stay for come for the tactical analysis. Stay for the awful puns. That's what I've always said about this podcast.
Come for the tactical analysis. Stay for the legs. Get in the tough sheets.
Stay for the legs where he uses his legs. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, love that.
Exactly.
Ross, closing thoughts from you on this? Well, I would say it was cheery, probably it's not massively cheery, but anything else you want to add to chuck in the mix before we leave?
No, not really. I think that Bolton is more winnable than it looks. But last thing I will say, I can't remember. Are you doing this with me? Well, I'll just talk about it. This weekend.
I'm up for it. I'm well up for it.
So we're going to do something a bit different, Tilehurst End fans. We're going to do a live stream of commentary for the game, hopefully including play-by-play and color, as it were, with a U in color there. But yeah, we're going to do a live sort of stream. I'm hoping it's more actual, sounds more like a commentary track than looks like a Mark Goldbridge watch along. But, we'll see what happens. And I just think it'll be fun to react in real time to the game. You hear us after the game once I've had time to actually collect my thoughts. And yeah, it should be fun to blurt some nonsense out into the void. So come join us if you're if you're feeling like being kind, like I was saying earlier.
Yeah, well, listen, I know that it's the Newbury show on Saturday, and
is it? Okay.
The beauty of it is that if you have, I was going to say if you have a phone, stupid thing to say,
right?
On your phone, you can watch it on YouTube. You can plug it in and you just leave it and it will go. So yeah, we'll be on YouTube, but that's the plan anyway. What it looks like, no idea. But we'll
get that organized later this week and send all that good stuff out.
Yeah, and we'll give it a go and see what happens. It could be fantastic, but you could be witnessing the first and last live stream from the Tilehurst.
The Hindenburg looked great while it was crashing and burning.
Yeah, that's what an image to end the pod, episode 389. The Hindenburg, yeah, that's really good. That's tickled me. I like that.
Perfect.
Have a good rest of your week, everybody. Thanks for listening as always. Really appreciate it. Ross, and I got the giggles now. Enjoy the last part. You know what I mean? Enjoy whatever.
Thank
Just
you.
enjoy it.
Oh,
Enjoy
the
it all.
humanity.
Yeah, exactly. And we'll see you. We'll see this time next week, probably earlier, probably Monday, if we've recovered from a live stream that may or may not be like the Hindenburg. Yeah. All right. All the best. Love to the family, and come on, you arse.